Well, testimony continues in day 10 of the Alec Murdaugh murder trial. At this time, we continue to wait and see if the judge will allow financial crime charges to be admitted to the jury. Well, for now, today was spent in two different segments. One part was testimony about alleged financial crimes without a jury, and the other part was spent on testimony about forensic evidence with the jury present. So you break it up in those two there. Well, the prosecution is pushing for financial charges to be admissible because they say it's why Murdaugh killed his wife and son. Now, the defense argues those charges are irrelevant. But with the jury back in the courtroom, the focus was on the guns found on the Murdaugh property. For more on that, we turn now to our Grace Runkle, who's live outside the courthouse in Walterboro tonight with much more. Grace.
Well, after hours of very detailed testimony about the guns, firearms, rifles seized from the property, as well as ammo taken from the crime scene, the ballistics expert for SLED, Paul Greer, finally revealed a key point to the state's argument. Take a listen.
Based on my examination, it was determined that items 2 through 7, 35 through 37, and 39 had matching mechanism marks, and it was concluded that those items had been loaded into, extracted, and ejected from the same firearm at some previous time.
Greer there is saying that casings found by Maggie's body and casings found elsewhere on the property appear to have been fired from the same firearm. Now, you might remember this video from earlier in the week, body-worn camera from a SLED investigator noticing spent shell casings outside the home. He took those into evidence, and Greer says he compared marks on those and the ones found by Maggie to reveal they were fired from the same gun. That's his conclusion, but the defense heavily pushed back on that, and at times it got a little tense in the courtroom, with defense attorney Jim Griffin trying and failing to hold Paul Greer to a yes or no answer.
Is it your opinion in this case about the shell cartridges being fired from the same 300 blackout? Isn't that based upon your presumption that each 300 blackout manufacturer in the world makes unique tool marks when it cycles a bullet and ejects it?
It's hard to say. I have not looked at every 300 blackout that's in the world, so it's hard to answer that question. But again, based on my knowledge of that process and how they're made, I'm able to support my answer.
A long pause from Greer there, but this all came after a morning of testimony without the jury, because the judge is still waiting to decide what evidence of Murdaugh's alleged financial crimes can be admitted. We heard from the new president and CEO of Palmetto State Bank, where Murdaugh allegedly worked with his friend to steal funds. He testified that they started to piece together what had been going on in August following the murders.
As of the day of that memo that was presented to the executive committee, Mr. Murdaugh owed directly or indirectly $4.2 million.
$4.2 million, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Now, the state is pushing for evidence like this to be submitted because, again, they say it's critical to explaining Murdaugh's motive for the murders. The defense still pushing back on that, and that's why we are having these hearings and still waiting for an answer, Justin.
That's right, Grace. As we continue to wait for that answer, what can we expect on Monday? Because it feels like we now have a lot riding on Monday's hearings.
Well, Monday morning, we're going to be going back into a hearing. The jury won't be present for the first couple of hours. We're actually going to be hearing from the attorney for the family of Mallory Beach, the young woman that was killed in the boat crash back earlier before all of this happened. And you might remember that the Murdaugh family was facing some consequences for that. Both Paul was facing some charges for boating while under the influence, but Alec Murdaugh was facing a civil suit. So we're expecting to hear from him on Monday, but if you were listening to the end of today's trial, then you also heard that the state brought up another issue. They have some questions about a conversation that they heard Murdaugh had with his family and with his attorneys just a couple days after the murders took place. The state wants to know if that qualifies as attorney attorney-client privilege, because if not, they say they want to ask some of those witnesses about what was said. But again, that's going to be discussed on Monday, so it's going to be a pretty big day. Live in Walterboro, Grace Runkle, Fox Carolina News.
All right, Grace, thank you. Now, throughout this trial, we've been giving you in-depth and personal looks at both the prosecution and the defense, really since the beginning, so that way you are familiarized with these key players. Now, today, we want to go ahead and take a look at Judge Clifton Newman, because we want to make sure that you understand these same people that you continue to see throughout this entire trial and their backgrounds here. So we have all those profiles on foxcarolina.com. You can see lead prosecutor Creighton Waters and the two defense attorneys. But again, today, we want to go ahead and focus on Judge Clifton Newman as we await that pivotal decision. We want to learn more about the judge himself. So we're able to find a rare personal interview from 2017 when he sat down with the American Bar Association. Judge Newman was first a defense attorney and then a prosecutor for nearly 2 decades in Williamsburg County. And here's Judge Newman discussing what he enjoyed most about being a prosecutor, sharing some insight on the aspects that he may enjoy while on the bench.
The challenges involved in litigation, prosecutors play a very important and critical role in our judicial system in pursuing justice. And in pursuing justice, the discretion gives you an opportunity to give someone a break here or there, or to dismiss a case if you believe that it's a wrongful prosecution. So I certainly appreciated the discretion involved in prosecution, but I think most importantly the challenges of litigation and proving cases and examining and cross-examining witnesses.
Now, after Judge Newman was a prosecutor, the judge was elected to be a circuit court judge in 2000. Now, he said being a judge became a dream after practicing law for so many years.
I enjoy the responsibility, the awesome responsibility that I enjoy it. It's also the challenge of, having the responsibility of carrying the weight of the judicial system on your shoulders, and also seeking to dispense justice in a way that it should be dispensed.
Now, it's not often you hear a judge be so personal, but coming up at 6:30, we're joined live by a trial analyst to break down the massive decisions still weighing on Judge Newman, and we could see it happen, and also more what to expect there on Monday. As you heard from Grace, a lot to get to in the next week. Now, we've been covering this trial for you since the very beginning. Make sure you stay connected to Fox Carolina News. We've got you covered on air, online at foxcarolina.com. You can stream us anytime, Roku, Apple, Fire TV, and also stream the trial through our free Fox Carolina News app.